Race number 2's another sprint. Hopefully we'll get the full 20 minutes in this time. Newbie Jerome is on 13th position again, but there's been a little bit of a switch up front. This grid's based on the second fastest qualifying times. So Ollie Barker is on pole position with Steve Burgess just behind him.
Let's have a look then at the top 10 on the grid with Ollie Barker and Steve Burgess on the front row. Richard Baxter hoping for a better start from third as he shares row 2 with Mark Richards. That's Dominic Jackson and Tom Gladys on row 3. With Christian Jeffrey, podium finisher in race 1, and Jack Manchester, Elliot Goodman and Brian Caldwell completing the top 10. Lights are on as we get ready for the final sprint race of the season. Away we go. It's a good start from Ollie Barker. Also a lightning getaway from Christian Jeffrey, slightly less lightning getaway for Brian Harvey as he gets pushed the grass. Brilliant stuff from Manchester, who boldly looks to force to the inside of Richard Baxter into Riches. That was aggressive stuff, and Baxter chops straight across Manchester's bows as they head towards the hairpin for the first time, but Manchester is there in third. Jerome de Sadler gets pushed down a little bit wide in the midfield shuffle, but they are all cleanly through the first couple of turns. As already Ollie Barker looks to try and stretch away from Jack Manchester. Good scraps behind Mark Richards, right up there with Richard Baxter. Christian Jeffrey trying to squeeze his way through as well. Behind, it's 3 or 4 wide. Everybody's just looking for a little bit of ground as they can. Spencer Bourne, part of that scrap as well, as is John Caldwell. Through Hamilton and the front of the field already beginning to just try and stretch its legs somewhat. Real battles are in the midfield as they head onto the Bentley Straight for the first time. Everybody looking to gain ground in the early stages for the field just spreads too much. Barry Liversidge also showing strongly, but for Ollie Barker, this a much more commanding start to the race. He got this jump, but this time Steve Burgess is being very much preoccupied with the progress of Jack Manchester. As the top 10 all jinking through, as Dominic Jackson looks to try and get into terms with Jerome de Sadler, and it's Jackson who's really lost out at the start of the race. He's lost several positions, and the challenge here at Snetterton, if you don't get away too well, it's such a narrow run towards Riches that you can't defend it, you'll lose a lot of ground. Meanwhile, the fight for second accelerates through, heads up to Riches once more. Jack Manchester, after that assertive start to the race, still hovering behind Steve Burgess. Manchester using the road, a couple of wheels out over the curb. Same for Christian Jeffrey in 5th position, just behind Mark Richards. On towards Palmer, and then sprint towards Agostini. Just a little bit of line there for Steve Burgess. He'll have still carried the momentum. He's only lost a couple of hundredths of a second, but it just gives an indication to Jack Manchester if he can keep highly on the pressure, he might be able to force some sort of error. Manchester pursues Burgess towards Hamilton, and there's the gap back to the fight for 4th and 5th. Ollie Barker still just trying to extend that advantage. Again, Burgess just moving the car around a little bit as Brian Caldwell busy battling with Jerome de Sadler. De Sadler certainly getting involved in the thick of the action this weekend on his debut in the Radical Challenge. The same for Brian Murphy. Not quite as good a start to this race for him. And he has got Tony Barwell tucked up behind him as they head down the Bentley Straight. Meanwhile, Jackson still trying to make a little bit of progress, and Jackson is a little bit marred in the midfield as a look from Murphy to the inside of Spencer Bourne at the bomb hole. Doing very well to overtake there. It means that Murphy actually may be overcommitted, lost some momentum on the exit, coming under threat through Coram. No such dramas for the leading group of cars. And now that Barker's built that buffer, he's just able to control the pace, drive to a lap time, not overexert the tyre, not overexert the car, just do what he needs to maintain that buffer. Meanwhile, Elliot Goodman really has got his work cut out, keeping Dominic Jackson behind him. And as a result, they are both closing on to the terms of John McLeod McLeod in the white car, then Goodman the dark and silver machine, Dominic Jackson the all-white car, or all-black car rather, the all-white helmet. Colour affects commentators too, as on towards Agostini. Jackson thinks of having a look to the inside of Elliot Goodman. Can't quite do it. And the sprint towards Hamilton. And these cars so evenly matched as well. Oh, Jackson just out over the curve. He's trying to line up for a little bit of a look into Oggies. Goodman sees it coming, just preemptively covers the inside line on the way in. Doesn't leave a Radical SR3 RSX's width to the inside, so there's nothing doing there for Jackson. Down the Bentley straight. Challenge though for Dominic Jackson is, with an eye towards second in the championship, that even if he's able to clear Elliot Goodman, Steve Burgess, who won the earlier race, is right at the front of the field, second position, and Jackson's got to pass a glut of cars to elevate himself up to the podium. Into the bomb hole. Over the rims of the track, you can get a sense of the buffeting that the drivers get behind the wheel, and drivers really do need to be in good physical shape to get the most out of these cars. Out of Murray's, on to the centre straight once more. And there's a good tussle between two of the quickest drivers in the championship. Meanwhile, Richard Baxter trying to close up to Christian Jeffrey. We've got John McLeod, and despite all the efforts of Dominic Jackson and Elliot Goodman, they're not really quite on terms with threatening McLeod. As a big plume of dust gets kicked up by Jackson as he just runs wide coming out of Rich's. And part of that as well for Jackson is he's right in the turbulent air from the car of Elliot Goodman in front. It just means that he's driving through the buffeting. The car's gone understeer and possibly push him out wide on the exit of various corners. Also means that he's just going to be asking a little bit more of his tyres than maybe he'd want to be, and certainly that he would be if he was running in clear air. So through Agostini. It's a very closely matched trio. Again, Jackson's really good through Hamilton. He just seems confident to carry a little bit more corner speed in, carry it through the turn, and that just allows him to overlap with and possibly challenge on the exit. Down the Bentley straight on towards Brundle and Nelson once more. Meanwhile, Christian Jeffrey is right up with Mark Richards, so that could be an interesting tussle to watch for as well. And we've got McLeod under threat now from Elliot Goodman. John McLeod is just going to have to keep an eye on what's going on in his mirrors, because for Elliot Goodman he might be forced to make an overtaking move just to keep Dominic Jackson behind him, as Jackson again looks to try and pull the trigger through Coram. But he's not going to be close enough to look to the inside into Murray's, but he gets an excellent exit, and this could be Jackson's best opportunity of the race thus far, because he's a car length adrift as they come onto the centre straight. Already Elliot Goodman immediately moves to the inside of the road. Jackson follows him, and Dominic Jackson, he's got the momentum, could slingshot to Riches. He can't quite do it, as Goodman closes up to McLeod as well. McLeod moves across, preemptively takes the inside line for the hairpin. Goodman covers the inside as well, and he's going to be tight on the exit. This is an opening for Dominic Jackson. He should be able to carry just a little bit more on the way towards Palmer, and he does, but it's not quite enough to secure the overlap, so they remain as they were, out of the left-hander on towards Agostini. John McLeod punches the hole through the air. Elliot Goodman and Dominic Jackson just behind him, then Jerome de Sadler, and he has also got Brian Caldwell for company, so this could very quickly become a quintet. As they head towards Hamilton, this is where Jackson just really likes to carry the speed. Again, he does so, uses absolutely every millimetre of the road, closing right up behind Elliot Goodman. But what Goodman is doing so effectively is just positioning his car in all the right places at all the right times, which means there's not been a clear-cut opening yet for Dominic Jackson to burst through. And now, as they all get delayed a little bit behind John McLeod, those gaps ahead really opening up. So for Dominic Jackson, it's urgent for him to get past these two cars and see if he can close some other gaps down to make a little bit more ground before the checkered flag. Front of the field, the order remains unchanged. Ollie Barker from Steve Burgess and Jack Manchester. Through Coram Curve, meanwhile, for this tussle. Sadler and Caldwell trying to close up. There's the fight for second. It's just opened up a little bit. Jack Manchester, having been very close to Steve Burgess the last time we saw him, it's dropping back. That won't help it at all. Ollie Barker, meanwhile, this a champion's drive, in command of the race at the front of the field, not pushing any harder than he needs to. John Caldwell and Brian Murphy having a great tussle further back. They have got Spencer Bourne and Tony Barwell right with them. Barwell and Jules Blackcart. Oh, just slithering a little bit wide. There goes Caldwell. That's going to open the door maybe to Murphy. We'll find out momentarily as they sprint towards Palmer. Meanwhile, Dominic Jackson has found a way past Elliot Goodman. It was a long time coming and he's got through. His next target is John McLeod. Hopefully for Jackson, that is going to be a slightly easier task than overhauling Goodman. As they head towards Oggies, Jackson just tries to get the overlap with McLeod. Sees if he can force McLeod, a perennial radical competitor, into maybe going a little bit offline as they head on to the Bentley Straight. Doesn't manage to do that on this occasion. But Jackson, we've seen time and time again throughout the course of this race, very good through Coram. Out of Brundle and Nelson. Again, Jackson gets on the throttle, fraction of a second earlier than John McLeod, towards the bomb hole. They use the camber of the road. Jackson always slides the tail of the car towards Coram. McLeod darts in. Meanwhile, Christian Jeffrey still busy battling with Mark Richards. However, the word, there you see it, 5-second penalty for Richards for exceeding track limits. So this move from Christian Jeffrey as he darts the inside of Mark Richards, it gives Jeffrey the position on the road that he'd already now gained on the timing screen. So a disappointment for Richards. Nonetheless, he's been going very strongly. There's also a risk here that Mark Richards, given the proximity of Richard Baxter, may lose out to Baxter as well in the final equation. So that promotes Jeffrey up to third. Not third, fourth rather. It promotes potentially Richard Baxter up into fifth. Mark Richards, in adjusted time, shuffling down into sixth. However, if Richard stays with Christian Jeffrey, they might just be able to open up a few seconds over Baxter as they head towards Hamilton. We're getting fairly deep into proceedings now as well. Christian Jeffrey, no real chance to chase down Jack Manchester. He's 10 seconds adrift of Manchester. Now here's the battle. John Caldwell has essentially got half the field queued up behind him, including Mark Crader, who's at the tail of that train. He's trying to overhaul Tony Barwell, who in turn is attempting to demote Spencer Bourne. And John Caldwell, don't look in his mirrors, because if he does, he'll see nothing but darkly coloured Radical SR3. So, out of Oggies into Williams and onto the Bentley Straight they go. Very closely matched quartet. All in pursuit of Brian Murphy. And it's Murphy who's just been able to build himself a little bit of a buffer. Not much of one, as they head out of Brundle and Nelson towards the bomb hole. It's Tony Barwell. It's right in the middle of the queue. We'll head into Coram Curve though without any drama. Meanwhile, last lap time for Ollie Barker. We've not seen an awful lot of him, but he has controlled this race absolutely to perfection. Jerome de Sadler has been again in the thick of the action, but once more looking set for a top 10 finish and has got a good buffer over Brian Murphy, John Caldwell. Now we've also got Barry Liversidge looking to join in that queue as well. Tom Gladys. The leading trio spreading down the Bentley Straight. And Barclays just maintained that couple of a seconds advantage over Steve Burgess that he built in the first couple of laps. Negotiates the bomb hole. He's just got Coram and Murray's to go. We'll hope to have no drama whatsoever. And certainly looks as if that's going to be the case, as Ollie Barker accelerates out of Murray's for the final time. The checkered flag is poised, ready and waiting, and it's going to be a win for Ollie Barker Second place to Steve Burgess, and Jack Manchester, after a tenacious drive, completing the podium. Honours in the final sprint race of the year, going to the champion. But it's not settled just yet, because Spencer Bourne has found a way past John Caldwell late on. Caldwell looking to fight back any which way he can. Somebody with a damaged rear wing as well. That's not going to help them. Into Murray's the final time. Let's hope they're all cleanly through. Indeed they are. It's going to be the sprint to the line. Bourne can't afford to miss a beat here, because John Caldwell is right with him. And Caldwell, though he has to follow Spencer Bourne through as they take the flag. Great racing again, all the way through the field. Check then the final result. Oliver Barker wins from Steve Burgess and Jack Manchester. Christian Jeffrey in 4th. Richard Baxter in 5th after Mark Richards couldn't overcome that 5-second penalty. Dominic Jackson in 7th from John McLeod, Elliot Goodman, Jerome de Sadler once more inside the top 10. Trophies and champagne on the podium.
That was a much better race for you, wasn't it, Ollie?
Yeah, that was enjoyable. Got a great start again. Managed to pull away from Steve, which I was quite surprised about actually. And then it was just a matter of maintaining the gap. Pressure was off obviously in this race, having secured the championship, so it was much more enjoyable, and I just managed to keep nice consistent times, and it was actually quite straightforward win in the end.
On the podium, not quite first this time.
No, unfortunately not. No, I didn't get a very good start, and Ollie got a bit of a gap for the first couple of laps, and I couldn't seem to peg it back this time. So it was a good race, but I'm happy with second. It's some good points, but yeah, maybe for the last one.
Was there anything that you did particularly differently this time?
I ran some new tyres on the outside of the car, where Ollie chose to save them till the final. So for the first couple of laps, I was sort of trying to get the tyres up to temperature, whereas he was just away. And then later in the race, I couldn't pull him back in, unfortunately.
To go from 8th to 3rd in race 2, can't ask for anything more.
And what about for the endurance race?
Yeah, I think we should be in a good place. I mean, I got no time penalties. It's just, you know, I think I'm at the front with these guys, so it's just keep it clean, keep it fast, keep it consistent, and we'll see if we can get a result.
And obviously fired up Jack Manchester, but can he claim honours in the final race of the season? Find out in our next programme.